What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle. It's dramatically new, made possible only through years of research, inventions, and innovations.
ステレオが部屋を出た。ウォークマン。
Let's just have some fun today. Now, we'll take that and go right up to the canvas. Just sort of let this happen.
So, just before we get going, I just want to say a big thank you to the student room for the lovely space that we've got tonight. Brilliant people. They are basically the UK's largest online student community. So
thanks, guys. Again, thank you.
Check them out. And also, as always, a big thank you to our supporters, Silicon Brighton, without whom this wouldn't be possible. So
exactly.
Yeah,
they've even created
guys.
a beautiful banner for us.
I know. Check it out.
I know. Great.
So without further ado, I want to just introduce our speaker, Morgane Peng. She is Director of Design at Societe Generale. She leads a multidisciplinary team of designers internationally, and their
we have like
their mission is to basically take complex financial solutions and make them easier for people to use. And bit of trivia, when she's not doing that stuff, she is a keen gamer and artist for indie games. Yeah, so big round of applause, everyone.
Rock on.
Thank you.
So a few things I'd like to discuss today is I think we are in a very exciting moment for design because everyone's talking about design. I think more and more people understand the terms as well. Everyone kind of wants design as well, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to really make it work in an organization. It's always people who want things done for maybe tomorrow, or giving us like things that we don't really consider as design, UX design. And the thing is, to be able to work and be able to focus on making good design, we can't really fight with everyone. We need people to understand how to work with us, or rather how design can work in the organization. And this is actually my talk today. And to do that, a very, very quick intro on me, because I think I'm not sure I was really following the right path to be a designer, because I actually started in finance. I don't know. Oops, yeah, can you see my screen? Yeah. Don't ask me about that. I don't remember, but that's something I did at school in finance. I started in Paris, I work in Hong Kong, and then in London. And this is where actually I switched to basically UX design, so user experience design. Because my little secret, as John mentioned, is I was actually also doing some game UI design. So it kind of all joined one day, which is very surprising, because obviously when you work in a bank, you don't really expect to have designers around. But basically, that's what happened. And so my goal today is to discuss this, how we can, leveraging on my experience, how we can get more confidence to make design matters in organizations. And believe me, I made it happen in a corporate investment banking. It's possible everywhere. Learn one thing to take home, hopefully, and also share, because a lot of things I realized when I'm doing this talk is a lot of this is a common experience or common trauma, should I say, we share as designers. And this, no matter where you are. Some of the stories I'm going to tell, I've heard them even from people working at Google, so it happens everywhere. And first, just to get into the mood, I would like to propose a little bingo. So we're going to do it two-way, because we have people on site and remote. So for people who are remote, I think we're going to drop a link to the Zoom chat. Yeah. And so obviously you're going to get all the sentences at once, but for people here on site, I'm going to reveal them one by one. And the rules are easy. It's basically 1 point per sentence if you heard them. Yeah, and let's go for that. So the first one, can you make it pretty? So obviously it's basically from people who may not be designers. Can designers say that themselves? I'm not sure. But if you work as a designer, you may have heard them. The second one is, can you do the UX? Please add a wow effect. I need a screen for a big meeting. Usually the meeting is like either in the afternoon or tomorrow as well. I know what they need, of course, the users. Don't worry, I just need a quick review. It'll be super quick. Oh, can you show me your design tool? I'll do it myself. I want to mix between these apps because I like them. And the very famous, can you make my logo bigger? So do we have any bingos in the room? Yeah? Well, how many bingos do we have? Oh, good couple. All right. I would try to switch to the mural board, see if it happens. Okay, so let's have a look online. So we still have some dots going on. Oh, so the make it pretty is pretty popular as well. This is actually funny because once I was discussing with a student who's a photographer learning UX. And when I tell him this, he was like, oh, I get this all the time as a photographer. People ask me, can you make it look good? But he doesn't know. And he was like, look good, like how do you want me to make you look good? It's kind of the same experience here. Okay. Oh, we don't have so far we don't have so far the mix between these apps. That's interesting. All right. And what's kind of funny when I've been doing those sentences is I actually realized that they also have variations. So for example, if you take the one in the middle, I know what they need. When I posted this on LinkedIn, people got very, I would say, engaged in the discussion. And I got some variations, which is research takes too long. We don't have the luxury. We know users. If my mom can use them, then we're good. So that was, I think, an interesting variation here. And so what I'm actually interested to know from the audience online and offline is, have you had something similar that kind of frustrates you as a designer? Kind of, if I'm expanding with the example just before, that would be, if my mom can use it, then we're good, which is apparently also a common sentence here. So for people who are here in the room, we have Post-it notes. We should have some Post-it notes around that you can write on. And so obviously you can see for people who are online, you have the mural board, so you can actually fill the Post-its next to it. And for that, we're gonna give you a few minutes to do it. And yeah, let's see what we're gonna find. I'm gonna add one I hear a lot, which is make it pop. It's a variation of make it pretty. All right, so someone online just wrote, add more colors. Yeah, I feel you, we probably have the same experience at work. Ooh, all right, we have a make it innovative. That's the first time I hear this one, but I can see why someone would say that. We know what's better for the users. Yeah, that's a very common one as well.
Okay, is
Features,
anyone, should we do
features,
some in the room
features.
as well?
Should we collect some out?
Should we collect some in?
Do you have good ones? Do you want to read them out?
Yeah, let's do it. Should we
Let's do it together, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it together, shall we? Yeah. So,
Did we say that we have some prices as well?
Yes.
Yeah?
They may have been forgotten. So let's not mention that.
it's too late. I mentioned it.
We'll send it in the post.
Okay, so we've got my 3-year-old son has designed our new logo in Word. Can you please use this?
My friend got it and he's so upset and he was like, I should have charged like, I don't know, 10 times what I quoted just for that. If it's made by someone like you or your family, then it's like multiplied by 10.
Can we make it more detailed?
Can you make it more polished?
Yeah, more polished. Yeah,
Use polishes. Can you just add color?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Add some spice or do your thing. A variation.
Do your designer
Do
thing.
some design magic.
Just
Oh,
do
yeah.
it. Can you just do a quick logo?
I want to keep some of them. Hold on.
I love the logo one. You can do that. It'll take a minute.
My brother-in-law will be able to do it without a design-related degree.
Ooh.
That's not a family one.
This just needs a quick spruce up.
I don't like it, but I don't know why.
I love that one.
Who got this one?
Can't give you any feedback.
Wow. Yeah. What did you say? You're like, fair enough. Oh, that's an hour's work. Can we make it cooler? Do a quick logo. Logo is coming a lot. Yeah.
Logo's in there, top.
Yeah. Just copy Apple or any other brand. Cool. Yeah.
So,
Oh, we have more. Okay.
just I got a couple more. It's just declutter. Here you go. Just declutter this.
Marie Kondo this.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. And I go back to the presentation. So I don't know if I guess we all have at least a few quotes we can relate to. And I don't know if you realize, but very often, especially in articles online, people are very obsessed with getting a seat at the table. I know it's been used as well in this events today, kind of being heard by the big boss. But something that I think most of these people who say those sentences have in common is that they are actually the mini bosses. So they're the one we have to work with every day and who actually can make our life miserable or not. And so they're the one we need actually to convince and to be able to work with. Otherwise, yes, we can't really focus on the craft if we have to fight all the time with them. And so this is exactly my talk today. I don't know if there's any Zelda fan here, but this is Breath of the Wild. Oh, this is someone recognize it. Yes. And the truth is, you're not always a UX designer. I know we like to sometimes go deep into our craft and, you know, UX tools, theories, such as that. But when you're on a project, that means you have to interact with people. So you have to wear different hats. You have to be able to explain and to articulate your decisions. And actually, I really believe that sometimes when we have a lot of misunderstanding, it's also because they don't know how to articulate design, such as there's something wrong, but I can't say why. And let's face it, here we're dealing with humans, so there is no magic formula. But as designers, I think we're really equipped to have the tools to actually analyze and kind of rationalize the different problems that we have. And after spending many years trying to explain design in a big organization, I could say, I think I would probably categorize the different things I've heard into 3 categories. And so for each of them, I'm going to introduce them and share how we can act on them. So as I said, with time, and in my experience, I've met those 3 people. We have hostile Jean, contemptuous Paul, and manipulator Audrey. So Jean is the person who says, design, don't get it, don't see why. I lived without it for my entire life, I don't need it. Contemptuous Paul is, are you the designer? Okay, well, do your thing. Actually, hold on. Do your thing. Yes, add some spice, do your thing. We got this one. And Audrey, she's the one who's like, okay, I'm not quite sure what design is, but it sounds nice. And I need my size to be pretty for my investors. Can you do it? Or I guess someone mentioned just copy Apple. Kind of maybe, so I think it's an Audrey thing as well. And so as I said, for each of them, I'm going to share a few strategies that worked for me, worked for my team, that I shared in several talks that I think can work for you as well at your daily work. So let's first start with hostile Jean. So Jean is the person who say, can you make it pretty? Can you make it pop? I know what they need, or I know what's best for the user. I think we got that as well online. And the infamous, can you make my logo bigger? So Jean's problem is a problem of culture. He doesn't believe in design because he's never really worked with it. And there's a saying that, you know, when you're born, everything when you're born is natural. That's the natural order of the world. Everything between your 0 to 30 years is basically exciting. You probably can make a living out of it and work in it. But after 30 years, and I'm sorry, that's going to happen to all of us, apparently every innovation that happens after you're 30 is against the natural order of the world. You're against it because it looks weird. It's like, what's blockchain? For me, at least. And so, yeah, so those are like really people like Zhao who really work with our designers for most of their entire life. And so very often with Zhao, there's an easy way to recognize those people. When people make mistakes or user make mistakes, they think that we need to educate them. So most of the time, if there's a mistake that's been made, it's not the problem of the application or the service, it's a problem of the user. And this is how we end up with all of this, again, to educate and to train people. Also, as I said, it's hard because obviously they are not used to work with designers, and also traditionally, and especially in traditional organizations, people like Jean, they are the ones who are asked to explain everything, to be able to detail the results and detail trends. I mean, that's their job usually. So to get them to say that they don't know, it's actually a good, it's a really good progress because they're not used to do that, and that's usually not what we ask them at work. And so that's why very often, for people like Jean, we try to be super rational. We try to, I don't know if you ever used those ones. I tried actually. Trends, you see, if you invest in design, it's going to have more revenues. Yeah, all these things, the maturity levels and the benchmarks. But again, changing your mind is hard. And usually I like to ask, but I'm not going to ask now. But in interviews, I love to ask, when did you change your mind for the last time and what was it about? And obviously, it's not about what you're gonna have for lunch or dinner. It's a real topic, because changing someone's mind is hard, but changing one's mind is super hard as well. But again, there's some strategies, so I'm gonna share them now. So the first one, has anyone heard about this one? Foot in the door? Yeah? Yeah. So before it was used to sell you stuff for Black Friday, you can actually use it as well on your project. So without overwhelming Jean with a lot of theories, terms, acronyms, you can start small. And I can say definitely that's what we first started to do in my investment bank. I didn't start explaining the theory of or why we need usability testing. We started doing small projects and go step by step with them. And little by little, when you have convinced them on when they used to work with you, you can ask for more. So to give you a real example on a project, one day we started to have so many call to action in a page that was many buttons, many links. So what we did, we list them all in Excel, because people love Excel at my workplace. We came to the meeting and was like, look, there's 100 call to actions in that page. And some of them are duplicates. Can we do something about it? And so the next step is, so obviously they say, okay, let's do something about it. And then we're like, maybe we should bring some users just to ask what they think about all these actions. And so you see, you don't have to actually bring in, user testing. Again, you just bring it where you actually need those to be, and you don't have to mention big design words for that. The second one, I love it, is the bandwagon effects. And this is the tendency we all have to mimic our peers. So this is why, this is a bit more difficult to travel now, but I don't know if you noticed before COVID, we always go to the same holiday destinations as our friends. Sometimes we meet them there. And you can use this as well for Jean, because you could mention how another project that has been, I don't know, doing user testing, and they got great results. So maybe we should do the same. And yeah, I would say in terms of effectiveness, this one usually get at least their attention, because if someone in an opposite project do it, they want to know a lot more. And the last one, I made it up because for me, it's just kind of doing this crab attitude. Is the idea here is don't go direct at Jean, because if you go direct and you say, okay, Jean, you don't understand design, obviously he's going to be upset. But the thing you can do though, because Jean himself is probably a user of something, you can actually dodge it. It's kind of dodging the bullet, but I prefer the crab here. you dodge this directness. You don't have to go direct at him. You can find something where Jean suffers as a user. And so to give you a real example, I've been using it so much. It's a bit sad because we have to redesign the tool, so it's not as bad as it used to be. So I can't really use it anymore. But at my work, we have a tool that is horrible that all the managers need to use to give access, specific kind of secured access to their staff. And it was designed not by designers, but by security analysts. So I don't have a screenshot, I'm sorry, but you can probably imagine what it's like. And so when I talk about this tool, everyone suffers from it. Everyone wastes a lot of time because everything is hidden. The actions, when you give access to someone, it's all hidden. You don't even know, you don't get any confirmation when you do something. So when I talk about this tool, the managers, most of the time, they're like, gosh, this is such a bad tool. They really should have asked us. Yeah, ask the users. And that really allows you to explain the rationale of doing some of your design methodologies without using your project as an example. So at this stage, I'm quite curious to know if you know Jean or if you've tried any of these strategies. And first, actually, I have found, just to tell you, this is actually real strategies and they do work. I have found an interesting video online that I'm going to play, and I will ask you if you know which of the strategies. So it's one of those three. Don't make a new one yet. One of the three. So which one do you think this person, who is the co-creator of the Xbox, used? So let's play the video now.
So we go into the meeting, and 4 o'clock, Valentine's Day, Bill walks in. He's holding our deck, PowerPoint deck, throws it down the table, and he says, "This is a blanking insult to everything I've done at this company, basically was the quote. That was the start of the meeting. And we all look around at each other. And actually what we did was we all looked at Jay. We all turned and looked at Jay.
Jay Allard.
Jay Allard, because we knew he's mad about the Windows thing, because we forgot to, in Microsoft terms, pre-disaster him. We didn't let him know that we had sort of. So anyway, so we all look at Jay, but Jay is not. He's like in shock for a minute, you know. So I start up and I try to explain, and he yells at me and shuts me down. And then Robbie steps up and tries to explain, and then he yells at him and shuts him down. Then Jay steps up and he yells at Jay and shuts him down. Anyway, and this goes on, you know. And then Steve Ballmer starts to get in, and he's going through our business plan, and it says we're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's beating us up about that. You know, why are we doing this? It's so expensive, and why, you know, blah blah blah. Hours go by. So it's 5 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. Now this is Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you got plans.
Most of us have something going on. You know, so we're all looking around at each other, and you know, we keep saying, you know, we've spent a year looking at this. This is the best plan. If we want to get in, this is a machine we should build. It's a strategy we should use.
Yeah.
You know, and we just basically keep saying that over and over and over and over again. Finally, near the end, one of the guys who was just kind of an observer at the meeting raises his hand and he says, "What about Sony?" And
it's a ballsy guy to raise his hand when Ballmer and Gates are just breathing fire.
He was a senior guy, and he had been writing over the years a bunch of documents, kind of, because this was sort of his job. He'd be writing these documents saying, you know, Sony's like slowly invading the living room with processor here, memory here, hard disk here. If they put all that together, it could be a future threat to Microsoft, you know.
To that living room.
Yeah. So he just says that. He says, "What about Sony?" This is about 8 o'clock at night on Valentine's Day, and Bill and Steve stop and they look at each other. And Bill says, "Yeah, what about Sony?" And Ballmer says, "Yeah, what about Sony?" You know, and then they look at each other, and then Bill turns and he says, "I'm going to give you guys everything you want. I'm going to let you guys. I'm going to approve this plan. I'm going to let you guys go off, do your thing. You know, I'll give you all the resources. I know you want to be separate from the rest of the company, so you're not bothered. I'm going to let you do that. You know, full blessing. Go do this thing." And then Ballmer basically repeats the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, 5 minutes. And then we walk out of there. And, you know, and I turn to Robbie and I say, "That was the weirdest meeting I've been in my 15 years at the company."
So, which strategy do you think it is?
We got any ideas in the room? Or any online?
Yeah. Yes. It's crazy how when you want to get someone's attention, you have to say, "Oh, look, that's what someone else doing in your company or in your competitor." I've noticed it also works with neighbors, because I notice when people start to install something at their home, suddenly the whole block has it. It's definitely like also my personal experience, but the bandwagon effect is super, super strong. All right, so we're gonna move to Contemptuous Paul. So Paul's the person who says, "Can you do the UX or whatever it is?" Don't worry, I just need a quick review. I think we had a couple of Post-its about it as well. "Show me your design tool, I'll do it." So, heard that a lot? Yeah? Okay. Oh, so maybe we have more Pauls than Jeans for now. Okay, so Paul is not like Jean. I mean, he kind of understands that design is a thing and he needs design for his project, but he just doesn't really know how to make it work. And so for Paul's problem, I would say it's an organization problem. There's a conflict between the resource, the management, or the organization. And there's actually a swear word for this. I actually don't know if you ever heard about it, because this probably is more like studied in organization structures and stuff, but this is the word, and I'm going to try to say it. It's very difficult to say. So unless someone wants to say it, it's called organizational differentiation. Must manage to do it. Usually I try to repeat several times the day before, but it's too difficult. It's too late now. Okay, so I guess most people are like, what's that thing? It's really like what it's written in books, I assure you. It's the fact that in our modern societies, we are all split kind of by the division of labor into different jobs. And so when you're split into different groups, actually, whether it's in a job or not, there's this funny thing that starts to happen where you start to build this kind of in-group, X-group kind of relationship, where it's like the in-group is great and everyone outside is just like morons. The best way I've found, actually, it's a real thing, to explain that kind of relationship is a meme I found on the internet. So here it goes. Obviously, I've kind of hidden the images, but it's basically a perception matrix of how you see yourself and how people see you. Has anyone seen this kind of meme around? No? Oh, okay, we're in for a treat. All right, so developers, how do they see themselves? Top scientist? Yeah. Designers, how do we see ourselves?
Artist.
Someone said artist. Yeah, Steve Jobs, right? We're all like, how many Steve Jobs pictures or reference do we have in design talks? I mean, at all conferences, I always go and see at least one. So here's my my Steve Jobs reference tonight. Project managers, we're running the world. So that's the diagonal. Obviously, that's the best, right? Because that's how people see themselves. And now we're going to move on to how people see other people. So designers, well, I think we often complain that seen by developers, we're kind of just not really sure what we're doing, putting some paints on. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on this one, but yeah, just sprinkle a bit of UX. I've definitely heard this one. But yeah, we complain we're kind of not really well treated. But have you ever wondered how, I mean, let's face it, how do we see developers? Sometimes we have trouble to communicate, right? But have you ever wondered how they're seen by project managers? And talking about project managers, I've been on this. Sorry? That was it. Do you want to comment on?
Sorry, I was just saying that's quite an apt image.
I've been in a meeting where honestly, I had a designer who actually said, I don't understand what you do, to someone from the business. I was like, wow, okay, I need to give them my talk. And what do you think? How do we see them? They have this tendency of breaking everything. A perfect design. It was perfect. Why did they want to add another feature? So yeah, this is the organizational differentiation. Yes, I managed to say it in a nutshell. But what's really interesting is I've tried to share this to people who are not part of like design or the tech world or like completely strangers to our world. They don't get it. And what I like to ask my friends who do completely different things, for example, they work in archaeology or aerospace, they also have that at work. But from obviously not designers and developers, they have things like this. So I think this one is astronomy. And unless someone understands the joke here, I don't get it. And sorry, I even put some emojis to say I don't get it. Oops, sorry. And yeah, because I don't understand why there's a Mario here, why there's E.T. And when I saw my friends' matrices and archaeology and aerospace, I couldn't understand as well. So it's really this kind of relationship we develop when we're so specialist in a job. This is why at the end of the day, I know we have split and there's a new terms, there's a new product design technologies. There's so many new terms coming up every couple of months. Maybe at the end of the day, we just are webmasters. I mean, okay, I don't know when's the last time you heard this term. So for you, everyone, I've said it again, webmasters, probably like 20 years ago. Because like if you ask people who don't understand, like who are completely like working in different industries, that probably, they don't really make the difference between a product designer, a product manager, a designer, a developer. So yeah, at the end of the day, we are all working on most of the time digital solutions, but sometimes also physical solutions, and we need everyone to make it work. So how do we manage this organizational differentiation? Again, here, 3 strategies. So the first one, and we're discussing this before, is processes. I know processes is a big word, and most of the time we don't like processes. But especially when you're dealing with people who are not really familiar, having a clear process allows you to tell what is normal and what is not. So again, to give you a real example, sorry for the noise. What's crazy when I realized, because so what was crazy at work is we always had to explain why we wanted to do user testing. Because for us, obviously designing a solution, we need to go to the user and test it. So we want to do usability testing. Obviously for projects, they see that more like as time consumption. So actually one day I added 1 slide into our design methodology pack, user testing. And this user testing comes after designing the first screens, before doing the specifications for the developer. And it's crazy because once it's got into the slides, nobody even questioned it again. Process, everyone. Because the reason why it works so well is nobody wants to be against the process, because if they are against the process, then they will be responsible if things go wrong. So if it has become, and if you can have influence on the process by clarifying what you do and what needs to be done, really helps as well people to really accept, kind of plan for it. And also, if they're really against it, they really need to have a good reason. So along the same way, there's this qualification thing as well. So for everyone who thinks that using a design tools makes you a designer, I would say clarifying what actually a UX designer does. So for example, go meet, discuss, study users will make it easier as well for your organization, people you work with, to understand what you actually do. Because it's true, like this technical tool trap, we tend to have it a lot. So again, today, there's a lot of quick boot camps and training where you can learn how to use a design tool. And obviously, I think we all agree that this doesn't make you a designer. But you know, it's a bit like saying, because I know how to use Word document, I would be writing Lord of the Rings, and that's not the case. So again, to educate the people you work with, clarify what actually a UX designer is doing. If a UX designer is not going to talk to users, doesn't have time to study users, then maybe we shouldn't call that a UX designer, just to clarify. Finally, I like this one a lot, speak the language. In every industry, there's a specific lingo that you will see people use, and I would say this common reference pattern. And so by understanding how to speak the language, you can hack your explanations and go faster. So as an example, again, in my industry, in finance, everyone is aware about risk. Even my designers, they have actually compliance trainings on risk. So we say things such as risk taker and risk adverse. And so, for example, one day on a project when they wanted to go super fast, so the product owner didn't want to test the designs, what I said is actually, Vincent, I don't get it. Are you such a risk taker that you just want to ship the product without even testing it before? And Vincent, in real life, he's a trader. His whole day is actually about managing risk. And by changing the discussion and kind of hacking my way in with this risk vocabulary, he really understood why we are doing testing. It's actually to diminish the risk of shipping something that nobody cares about and don't know how to use. Again, changing the language can help you a lot here. So that was for Paul. I'm curious. I don't have a video this time. I think I probably should collect them because they're quite fun. But I'm currently curious. Has anyone worked with Paul or want to share a story regarding one of these strategies?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I know we're hosting, but we've definitely, John and myself, come up across Paul. And I think some of these strategies we've definitely tried. Certainly the kind of sort of explaining what it is that you actually do, because I think sometimes what we find is that in any kind of organization or place that we've worked, sometimes people who are doing a job don't even know what they do, and they've been there for 20 years. So trying to understand what other people do who come in, certainly from a design perspective, it can be challenging. And I think just giving them a bit of an explanation and an understanding definitely helps. And equally speaking their language, I think, again, that's like a really vital piece of advice and a strategy to do, is to just feed them back to them in a language that they understand, and it definitely has a bit more of an impact.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't got to hear myself through that. No one with any specific examples, but a few people said they know John, but a lot more have come back and said they know Paul.
Oh, wow. So that means we're progressing as an industry. I don't know, at least Paul knows about design, you know, compared to Paul. So, okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, to build on this, I have to say sometimes we're guilty as well, because there's definitely like people we work with, we don't really understand their job, and we kind of have mental shortcuts as well. The same way that, you know, you could get, oh, so just go there and do your thing, add some paint or things like that. One day I met someone who's actually working cybersecurity, and I wanted to make a joke, was a very bad joke, but I said something, oh, you're the one who approves of security exception. He did not like my joke. And then I realized that, oh my God, I'm sure cybersecurity is like much more than just validating people's exception. But yeah, and then I was like, oh, this is exactly like when people say, oh yeah, you're a designer, you adding colors. And so I did the same thing to that poor guy about cybersecurity. Yeah, so I probably should have read a job desk of what actually a cybersecurity analyst does, to prevent me from doing this horrible joke. But yeah, so aligning process and qualifications, that's quite important. So reaching to Audrey. So Audrey, so she's not like Paul and John. She welcomes design. She's really, really design friendly. But she's also the one who says, oh, please add a wow effect. I want a mix of these apps, or just copy Apple. Oh, I need the screens for a big meeting because I need to convince whoever. So as I said, Audrey, it's a bit tricky, mixed feelings, because she really welcomes design, but it's not for the right reason. She wants to use design to convince her stakeholders or for her presentation. So again, if we have established what a UX designer do is supposedly make designs experience for users, so why are we doing that for like the stakeholders? So Audrey's problem is actually a business. She's misusing design to conceal her business issues. And the best example actually I found to illustrate this is the Fire Festival. Everyone still remembers what it was when it went out, and it was so big, and there was so much like I think the whole Instagram was kind of like so hyped about the Fire Festival. What people may not know is that actually this Fire Festival was actually organized by a startup in the Silicon Valley. They were working on an app. I'm not exactly sure what, but basically to promote the app, they were like, oh, we're going to build this great festival. It's going to be full of stars. It's going to be high end. And I really believe that they actually applied what they think they were doing for the app to the festival, which means they had a beautiful prototype, beautiful communication materials. You really wanted to go, oh yeah, it's moving. But then the delivery was catastrophic. They kind of forgot that when you create a festival, you need water for people, you need toilets for people, you need food for people. So there's, I think, some crazy inner stories on Netflix. There are some nice documentaries. I really recommend them. But this is basically when we kind of misuse design to sell a beautiful prototype. But sometimes behind, we don't have the data, we don't have the API, we don't even have anything, but we've actually sold so much this concept that is not even real. And so this is why I always say in the team that as designers, we have a lot of powers because we can simulate those things that then get sold to other stakeholders. So this is why I think really today when we talk about ethical design and dark patterns, this is really in relation to this, because not only we can simulate prototypes that then get misused and missold, we can also actually be responsible of introducing dark patterns, the patterns that trick the users into doing something they may not want to do in the first place. So again, here we have some strategies. Again, not everything is dark here. And what I would say is, as a designer, this is also your role. So remember when we said we need to clarify what the designers do, nobody can blame you for doing your role. So if you clarify that your role is actually to advocate for the users, and then as a designer, you're very concerned about the dark pattern we're putting here, nobody can be mad at you. And again, when you have put in trust, this is probably what people expect from you. So when I published this article on Medium, one comment I did not anticipate, because I was very scared. I was like, oh, that means all my product managers going to see how I see them. Are they going to be mad at me? Thankfully, some of them recognize themselves into the little characters. And as you can see, this guy, said, possibly my favorite article of you. Also, so glad you switched my name to Audrey. Keep this coming. Because he was, saying, I want a mix of this and that. And, oh, I don't have the content, just do your designer thing. He was a little mix between Paul and Audrey. But actually with humor, this is actually how I actually explain why we couldn't work like that. And he read the article and he recognized himself. It's a good thing. All right, so strategies. How do we deal with the Audreys? So first one, I'm not sure it's going to be a big surprise, learn the business. Because again, if you want to stand up and say something is wrong, you have to understand what's happening around you. Another meme, I love memes, as you may have seen now. This is actually, I think it was probably an Easter egg from Google. This is like the Google Classic. It's the Google maybe we could have had 30 years ago. So the one where you write physically a query and you have to actually mail it with a stamp. Because if you think about it, maybe 40 years ago, we didn't have Wikipedia. If you wanted to know something, you have to either go to the library or know someone who knows. So 30 years ago, that in terms of business could have been viable. We could have done it. But obviously today, I don't think anyone would believe in such business model. But we could totally make this shiny, with the latest design trends, skeuomorphism, neo-skeuomorphism, etc. We can make it pop, we can make it pretty, but in terms of business, it's completely rubbish. And so very often, so again, this is an extreme example, right? Nobody's gonna wanna, actually, maybe I should share it sometimes with my product owners, but this is extreme. But very often people rush to change the surface and they don't really tackle the core. And maybe in your work or in your organization, there could be something, people rushing to kind of create the end websites, kind of the end interface, but they completely forgot to change the process in the inner process, or maybe change the APIs. So the second strategy here is being an ally and not a resource. So that means that sometimes we have to say no. And that's why I told to all my new joiners is, if you do something you don't want to do, but you've done it, you become complicit. And next time they will want to do it again because you said yes. So they don't understand that you were not super willing to do whatever you've done. Again, as an example, and tied into the previous point I made, at my company, before we start a design project, we actually have some criteria. And one of them is to actually have a clear API architecture. API is that thing that's mostly backend related, but we talk a lot about open banking in the industry. And so basically our strategy is to open up the system. So as a design team, we actually refuse projects who don't have a clear API and architecture strategy, because we don't want to spend our resource and time on projects who are not clear about this. And again, if we start a project, we're not even sure what we're going to do in terms of backend, we are not even reaching our open banking strategy. So embedding these kind of criteria into a design process and criteria whether we actually work on the project or not allows us to actually contribute to the strategy and actually open a system for our users. And finally, being part of the solution, that's the last part and the last strategy I'll share today, is very often, not only we can work with our partners and stakeholders, we can also be part of the solution. We can actually use design to tackle very serious issues and very serious problematics by using our design methodologies. And for that, I will finish with an example I've seen on Reddit. So for people who don't know, Reddit is this community where you can create Reddit subreddits and everyone can participate. And like every communities, they will face, and they are facing issues such as harassment. So for example, I remember one day in a specific community, they wanted to target a specific person. And so everyone started to go after that person. And to manage this kind of situations, they've actually implemented a very clever design solutions. So it's not necessarily more, more interfaces, more tools, more code. What they actually created, and again, that was actually worked with the design team, they created a feature that is called the shadow ban. And so when you shadow ban, you are still part of the Reddit community, but everything that you post is invisible. So for example, to come back to the person who was harassed, everything that mentioned that person's name was invisible. That means as a user, bad user, I guess, you will still see your message. So you won't get even, I don't know, mad that it's been deleted, but that kind of just deflates the whole harassment mechanism. And here again, it's a very clever solution. Doesn't necessarily need a new feature, a new, interface, but being able to do enough research and think about the solution allowed Reddit to address a very business problem. Yeah, so question now, do you know Audrey, and have you tried any of the strategies? I'm curious.
I've definitely met some Audreys.
Oh yeah.
As a technician, we use reverse strategies. It's about manipulation, where we try to coax people to do the correct thing on stage. So I'm not gonna make any comments on that. I'll chat on.
I see. Do we have any comment online?
People that know some Audreys.
Oh.
I think the ally, and not the resource, like learning when to say no and educating people around why you can't do something is really important, and definitely something that, had to kind of learn as I kind of progress in my career. Is just because you can doesn't mean you should, and kind of like, if you do something, like you say, if you do something for someone once, then they're just always going to come to you, expect you to do that. So you need to kind of rejig their expectations, I guess, as to why. You agree?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I agree.
Yeah, that's very tricky. Especially I realize when you join a company and you want to be helpful, you're gonna say yes to most the requests.
Yeah.
It's very tricky to be assertive enough so that you don't want to be disrespectful, and you still want to keep good relationships. But if you don't establish those boundaries, then no wonder then I come back and ask you for more. That actually happened recently in my team, where someone asked me, "Oh, I have an issue. Can I talk it through with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so basically, this person ended up committed in writing stuff for a project, and was like, "You're not doing their content. Like, it needs to be done by someone from the project. How did you end up in this situation?" And so we kind of role play the situation to see at which point he committed into doing that. And he realized that he just didn't want to disappoint. He wanted to help. He said yes. And so then the person in the minutes say, "Oh, okay, so he's in charge now of it." And this is what no, I don't want to be in charge of it. But he said yes. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, so to wrap up, next time you meet those people, hostile Jean, contemptuous Paul, and manipulator Audrey, actually take a step back, because maybe you're facing culture Jean, organization Paul, and business Audrey. And before saying, oh, they just don't get design, again, maybe it's a different problem, and hopefully now you have a few strategies to tackle all of them. So very quickly, because there was a lot of strategies for culture Jean, foot in the door, bandwagon effect, or what about Sunny? I think probably it's easier to remember now with Sunny, crab attitude. For Paul, we can align the processes, the qualification, and speak the language. And for Audrey, learn the business, be an ally, not a resource, and part of a solution. If you want to find out more, I have some book that I really recommend. The Fourth Tendency by Gretchen Rubin and The Culture Map by Erin Meyer, especially if you work with different cultures. It's really well written. I think Erin is American, but she now lives in France and she worked a bit everywhere around the world. Really helps to explain why sometimes you get stuck. You want to do the same thing, but you don't really convey it because we have different ways of working in terms of is it a group decision? Is it individual decision? So that's what she will cover. In terms of organization, it's a thick book, so you have to be a bit courageous, I think. But what's really interesting, this book from Frédéric Laloux, he is going through all the different kind of ways humans have been organizing themselves since like the very beginning. And that also helps you, that I think gives you the key to understanding which kind of structure you are and how the dynamics of power and relationship works. And finally, for Audrey, I've been talking a lot about business, but something you can read, especially if your company is public or have investors, is to see how they actually communicate with the investors, because they can say a lot to the employees. What really matters at the end of the day is how they actually communicate to investors. So I would highly encourage you to have a look at those documents. Most of the time they're public because the company is looking for investors, so most of the time it's public. Yeah, and so that will wrap up my talk for today. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I will gladly answer them.
Thanks so much, Morgane. That was brilliant.
Really good.
Really enjoyed it. I think there were some great book suggestions at the end there as well, especially the Culture Map.
How you read it?
I have. It's one of my favorites.
I've read every design book.
No, I've read it. I think it's a good one because I think certainly, and a big. I think there's an example where she goes and does a talk, and I think it's in like Japan or somewhere like that, and she doesn't quite understand why it's not connecting or that they're not reacting in a specific way, and it's basically because they just don't. That's because it's not polite to clap or whatever in a specific way that she was expecting they might. So she had to go away and have a real good think about the best way next time to present to them, and so she changed it up, and then it hit a bit better. But again, like it's okay, that must move out away of the speaker. I've got a question for you because before we put it out, I was just wondering, because there's some great examples there, and you know, certainly when it came to like the strategy side for across each of these sort of different types of people or characters, I was just wondering, like, how long has it taken you personally to sort of develop these kind of strategies that you kind of spoken about tonight, and before you kind of identified what were the best ways to kind of approach them, what did you do, you know, to kind of build that up?
I'm not sure. I think it's probably when we're discussing with people in my team. Probably where I'm lucky is because before I was from the business side, so I wouldn't feel bad being the designer, because I know sometimes when you join a company, you actually don't know how much you don't know. You're like the unknown, so you're not sure if. And I think it's hard to be assertive when you don't really understand the business of the company. But being kind of born into the company, it was easier for me to articulate the thoughts. And so when I hired more and more designers and seeing the issues they faced, I was kind of giving maybe like the subtitles of what was happening. Yeah, and actually some of the things came from them because, for example, the illustration of using the methodology as a shield it's actually someone in my team who one day made a joke, and she was like, yeah, they wanted to, and so I used Morgane as a shield to still go ahead. Yeah, and I think it's the little things, you know, like it's try and see what works. And this is why I was actually trying to clarify some nuts for the new journals that then eventually went into the talk and the article. But yeah, experience, I guess.
Yeah. No, great. I totally agree. And because obviously, as a director, is that something you kind of try to advocate for your team and like the people you work with? So whenever they kind of perhaps maybe come to you with a situation like that, you kind of have that kind of knowledge to impart.
Go and read this, or go and watch this video.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be useful for something, right? Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's also, it's a reason why, but we also do a bit of improv in the team. So whenever someone's unhappy with something that happened to them, I'm like, okay, wait, I'm going to note this and we're going to play this at the end of the year. And that really helps. I mean, for everyone who's trying improv, it's basically you get a kind of situations, you play. It's a mix between improv and role play because we still have to follow a narrative. But I will feel like being able, because sometimes, you know, at work or even at school, like when you're not happy with something, you just move on, but you don't have time to kind of process, kind of really understand why people are reacting this way or another. So having kind of set up this improv group in the team really also helped a lot, because those little characters, then we can say, okay, today you're going to play a Jean or you're going to play a Audrey. Fun fact, we actually made this also into outside of design. So one day we organized this kind of role play improv session with the whole of our digital team. And so we made a head of digital play someone that doesn't believe in his strategy. Yeah. That was very fun. And it's just nice to kind of like, again, step back and think outside as a non-designer. Why are they thinking like this? And again, being myself part of design before, I think it's easier for me to know why people are thinking a specific way or not. So as I said, I can do the subtitles a bit easily, I guess.
No, that's a great response. Yeah, I think, you know, like bringing design into any kind of organization is something that's happening all the way around. You know, design is so much more than just coloring in pictures these days. And as designers, everyone knows, like, you know, how multi-talented you have to be, how many like different hats you have to wear and stuff. And actually, it's great because, you know, the businesses can, I think, from our perspective, benefit so much from design. It's just about like let them understanding where you're coming from and how best to kind of deal with these sort of challenges that you kind of come across. And we're going to push out questions if anyone's got any questions. Is there any
online?
Yeah. Hang on, I'll just pass over them.
Cheers, Don. Yeah, lots of lovely thanks, Morgane, for that really great presentation. Got a question here from Dan. Do you feel it's important to have a good mix of Jean, Paul, and Audreys in an organization?
Oh, mix. You know, when I first started this talk, maybe 2 years ago, I probably had more Jeans than the others. And what's very interesting, and I think maybe it's due to the pandemic, but the fact that people had to actually go remote and everyone has been forced to use digital tools, now understands the pain of like having something that is not intuitive and where like the UX is broken. So I would say, I mean, I'm sure there's still some Jeans around, but it has definitely shifted. So I don't know if it's really a mix, but I can see there's like maybe more Paul and Audrey's. I still like, I guess, I mean, sometimes I ask who's your favorite character? My favorite character is Jean because, you know, it's very rewarding. And I've been discussing that with my team as well. When you explain design, you make it work with people like Jean, who like, it's kind of like a blank state. He's just really against everything new, really. They become your best advocates. And we have that happen in my organization where we had people who are completely against us, it was like just a waste of time. And so now they're actually selling design to the other people, which is very strange. So it's a mix of Jean and Bandwagon Effect because they're actually selling it for us. Probably even better because obviously they won't have a conflict of interest because I can go and say design is super cool, you know, but I'm biased, obviously. So yeah, I would say depending on the industry, maybe you start first with a more like Jean and a bit of Paul. Then probably as the industry mature, so it's kind of the maturity model, you maybe have a bit more Pauls and Audreys. I would say my least favorite character is Audrey's, because that probably means there's, as I said, there's a business issue, and there's maybe it's going to be harder to address as well, because if there's business issues, I mean, it's very hard as a designer to revamp the business model, and that's not your job actually. So you can just raise the red flags and the awareness, but it's definitely harder. But you know, they can understand, like the guy Stefan Rappner, who recognized himself in Audrey. So you see, there's hope.
Cool. And just a couple of other questions. They're a little bit more banking related, actually.
Oh.
If you're okay. So with banking apps being so widely used, how do you handle the large number of different personas?
Ah, interesting. So I will try to answer like banking for the wider audience, but I work in investment banking, which is also actually very complex because we have a lot of different types of personas. In my organization, especially in the product we work with, they are still pretty niche. So they are really business to business or business to employees. So usually it'll be, I wasn't expecting to say those words, but like, for example, people working as syndicates or doing originations of bonds, things like that. So they have specific roles and specific jobs. So we will study them. For each new project, we actually start from scratch in terms of personnel because they are so diverse. When it comes to personal banking, again, that's not my remit. So I'm just gonna probably not be as accurate as someone who will be heading a completely customer facing, so B2C app. I would say that also depends because when you release a product, whether it's like mortgage or insurance, you still target specific people. So you can really go deep down and do the user research. So I don't believe in searching as like a generic persona, because that at the end, you just end up with a bunch of cliches. And so depending on which product you work on, doing the research part. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's it with online. I have a question myself, actually. I had a sneaky peek on your LinkedIn. I can see that you've been at your current place for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Have you found it, or would you have any advice to anyone out there who's looking to grow their skill set within one organization? It's quite common to change jobs to get different experience, but you've managed to do a lot of it where you are.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking this question because we are discussing it, and obviously that's something for me as a career, but also for my team, because like people in my team tends to stay for the long term. We have a very low attrition rate, but I know, and especially because I've been contacted myself by recruiters, they play the game as, you know, if you don't move every 2 years, it's going to be bad for you or whatever. And then when you see everyone posting on LinkedIn and like, you're like, oh, they're changing, maybe I should change. Think about which effect this is. Yeah, the bandwagon effect. They changed. My neighbor changed job. Maybe I should change job, you know. Yeah, it's hard to kind of fight this tendency. And it's true that I would say, maybe if it really depends on your objective, because I would tend to agree that if your objective is really to maximize your salary level, it may be useful to jump from job to jobs when you're younger. This being said, and I see that when we're hiring for more senior people, we have really dots. When we see a senior person who's been changing a company every 2 years, we're like, we want to bring senior people to do strategic stuff, but they only stayed for 2 years. So they've never really seen the light of day of their strategies. So how can you really, you know, trust this person? I mean, there's no proof that it's going to work. So I would say maybe as you progress in your career, that might actually not be such a good strategy anymore. But obviously, recruiters, because they want the fees, they will tell you otherwise. What I can tell for me is I think I was, and again, lucky because it depends, not all organizations allow that, but in every job, it's either you outgrow your job and you go somewhere else, or, you know, you get stuck in your job, that can happen, or you can grow along your job. And so when I started, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, we were barely doing any real design methodology. There was a point I remember we were not even doing user flows. sorry, but that was 10 years ago. You know, so every time we grew the team, someone bring in methodologies, I learned other things, and staying in one area allows you really to kind of deep dive into whatever really, you know, interests you. So for example, what we're very, very proud of today, we've been investing on our design system for a long time. And so by having the same people, I mean, staying for the long term, really thinking through, we were able to, for example, work a lot on accessibility. So we just released an article on, there's not the Medium link, but an article on adaptive color. So for example, the way we've tackled accessibility, I know someone has mentioned accessibility, which is a good thing in the ticket, is we have our colors who actually change depending on which level they are, because we have so much data in our interface, there's no way we could be accessible. The only reason we were managed to go so deep into our colors is because we had this commitment for long, we've been established for a long term, and the people working on color were like, they're almost since the beginning of the team, so they've really faced all the accessibility issues that they were supposed to work on. So that's why, again, if I want advice in terms of career, don't necessarily fall into the trap of the bandwagon and, you know, LinkedIn or recruiters. If you think you have room to progress in your job, and that's actually something you need to discuss with your manager, because manager must be useful for something. So hopefully you can discuss this with your manager in terms of progression. If you find a way to grow with your job, that's great, because I think really you can go deeper into the different topics you're going to tackle. If you feel you're stuck and, you know, you've tried everything, then it's okay to, you know, move on and do something else. But yeah, try to be aware now that you know about the bandwagon effect, that sometimes it's just the pressure you put on yourself, because you have the feeling that everyone is moving, but it's not, maybe not the best what's for you. Oh,
Perfect.
sorry, that was
Good
a long answer. I'm
It
sorry.
It's all right. Went on one.
Because I really care about this topic.
That's good. The passion was flowing, definitely.
Absolute credit to you as well for the inclusivity of the culture that you're managing where you are. I really resonate with that point, that you listen to everyone new that comes on board and allow them to bring their experience and inject that into the team as well. So yeah, sounds like a great place to work.
Definitely. You're hiring at the moment, aren't you?
Is it recorded? I'm going to play that to my team tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
I just had a quick one as well. With some of these characters that maybe don't believe in design so much, that you kind of turn around and you make like really big advocates of them, do they then come back to you and say, I need you to give me some ammunition to kind of like spread the word, or how do you kind of handle that, apart from maybe designing them like a beautiful deck about design, which would be the wrong thing to do?
Yeah, we actually don't have it.
Do you kind of collaborate with people like that and sort of help them to sell it into the wider business?
No, because I think the best is to do it their way.
Yeah.
It'd be highly suspicious if someone who's not a designer comes with a beautiful, like polished design pack.
No, absolutely. I think it's more like helping them to get that. Like, what tools could you give them to kind of like maybe fight your corner, that sort of thing? Like to make design tangible for them?
I guess it depends if you're internal or external. If you're internal, it's actually pretty easy because you can share projects,
like
quotes,
case studies and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say it's not so much case study, because again, case study is suspicious. You're like, oh, it's so well laid out. Someone has spent a week polishing that. There's a trap. But if it's internal, you can share the result, quotes from clients, quotes, metrics, or even like what we like to do is also do this, you know, getting the perception of people who worked on the projects, because very often, I mean, I don't know, I've never faced someone who say, oh, I just don't care about my project. You know, I'm just doing that because usually people care. It's just that they're find themselves in situations where they have like absurd pressures, absurd deadlines, and then it gets replicated, you know, passed down on the developers and you. Yeah, so I guess having examples from other projects is the best. I mean, for me, it's what works the most. It's okay, again, it's the bandwagon effect, the peer effect. But when people say, because if you mention Apple, because I know like people get very excited about Apple, but people then first reaction is like, we're not Apple, so it's fine, you know. And what you said, and you're like, yeah, in true, we are not Apple, you know. So Apple is maybe too remote, but if you have a similar project just in the next team, next project, then they'll listen a lot more.
Yeah, perfect. So internal kind of proof and advocacy is the strongest solution. Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
probably what I think really, and so to finish, I guess, on a positive note of hope, was very interesting because that's what happened with the design system. Because we not, so design system, I don't know if anyone's familiar, is like the toolkit we use of designing code to build services. And in the past, every team is like everywhere, every team's like running their own buttons and their own code. It really doesn't make sense because we're kind of repaying to create buttons, really not added value services. But to be able to kind of join forces and have one is very difficult because that forces the organization to share. And definitely that's a lot of selling at the beginning. But what we noticed is there's at some point, and that also happened with design, where not doing it, you kind of were against the pack, you know. So you have to justify why you don't want to use a design system. Kind of you have to justify why you don't want to do user testing or work with designers. And so this is like, I think what's really interesting is when you reach this tipping point, it's really rewarding because like all the years you've been investing or explaining things to people, like this is really, you know, and seeing that happen, I know that when I talk to my most senior people in the team, this is also why they find it really interesting to stay longer in the organization, because the reward of changing people's mind and how we work, I feel no matter the project, because at the end of the day, you can be proud of your project, but you remember probably more the people you work with because you spend a lot of time with them at work. So having this change, I know that for them is the most rewarding, definitely, even more than, you know, doing good design and being happy because you've done a nice usability testing or something. So yeah, it's worth investing in people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Invest in people.
People of the future. Have we got any more questions from the room or any more online, or are we good? All good?
Thank you, everyone. By the way, we do like project managers, by the way, just to be clear. We love you, project managers.
I think there might be some in the room.
I think that's it then. So we just like to, I think we should have another round of applause for Morgane. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for your talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Big thanks again to all those who've joined us online, and we will see you next time.
So yeah, thanks again to Morgane. Thanks to Silicon Brighton. Guys do a brilliant job of bringing this to life. Thanks to the student room for the venue, and thanks to everyone who's turned up as well. We have our next event at the beginning of February. Scan the QR code, do it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.